Morning, guys. Welcome. I'm glad you guys are here. I've got a few things before we get started into the message. First thing, I want to say a big thank you to everybody that was here last weekend to help us move stuff around, get stuff organized. It went really well. I think we got a lot of it done. And then, like Doug, Sherry, Jeremy Brown, they were here far later than the rest of us, getting the rest of the electronic stuff done. So thank you guys for all the work last week that were here. It was really much appreciated. Helped a lot. Second thing I've got is second Sunday of December. That's today. Today at 6 over at Memories, right? There's going to be a worship night concert over there. Come join us. It's going to be good. Our worship team is starting it off with some worship, and then there's going to be a hip-hop artist coming, and then finishing off with I Against No One, Doug and Douglas, and their band. So, what? That's right. and that's right. And so that's going to be tonight at 6 over at Memories. Come join us for the MC stylings of Jeremy. I guess I'll be there too. No, but I will be there. We'll all be there. It's going to be a good time, so come join us for that. It's going to be fun. Next week, we are going to Wilmore. We are going to go to Wilmore and do some caroling with Phil at Phil's job. So next week, we are moving up the time of service. So if you're not going to listen to the rest of the announcements, listen to this one. We are moving our service time up to 10 o'clock next week. Typically, we start at 10:30. We are switching that to 10 o'clock next week. We're going to do kind of a shortened service, and then we are going to go out to eat together, and then we are going to head over to Wilmore so we can get there a little early. Angela is driving a bus. That's right. Angela's driving the bus. I have been tasked with camp songs on the bus. So come ride the bus. We're going to sing some songs together. It's going to be just like going to church camp. That's right. We won't be online next week. So if you're online and listening, we're only going to be here in this place. We're going to start at 10 o'clock. What was that?
I need to know how many are going. We can hold 12 adults.
12. So yeah, so if you're planning on riding the bus, next week, let Angela know. That way we can get head counts, numbers, everything like that for it. So that's going to be next week. I'm not entirely sure where we're going to go out to eat, but we are going to go out to eat together and then head over to Wilmore, and we'll be there. We'll meet Phil there, and we'll do some caroling and just kind of hang out with some of the vets that he works with. So we're excited about that. I'm excited. Last thing I've got is Hope Totes.
Hope Totes!
That's right. Hope Totes. We're going to start collecting stuff for Hope Totes again. We are going to collect through December, a little bit of January, then we're going to deliver, I'm guessing, middle, maybe end of January. So Hope Totes, if you don't know what those are, they are going to be bags of supplies that we are going to give out in the community in Frankfort, specifically, I think, for our homeless community that we have in Frankfort. So we are gathering anything that's warm, hats, gloves, socks. We already have Mylar blankets, so the heat blankets, we've got all those. But if you guys would like to bring stuff to donate for that, we're going to start having a tote out in the lobby. Bring it in, drop it in there. We will get together at some point in January and pack the totes together, and then we will just take them out into the community and we'll deliver them out there. So that's going to be kind of our outreach, our winter outreach this year. So we're excited about that. Be excited. Let's start bringing stuff. Let's get that stuff collected so we can really bless that community. All right, this year.
Anything you can think of that the homeless population might need in the winter.
Yeah. So the other thing that was mentioned, sorry, I forgot. The other thing that was mentioned was non-perishable protein things, that kind of stuff, peanut butter crackers, trail mix, that kind of thing, that we could put into that. Just anything that we can do to help. We're going to put it together and take it out into the community. So that's all I've got. That's all the announcements I got. That was a lot of announcements for me. It's been a long time since I've had that many announcements. Usually it's just the one. But I also am going to do a little update, I guess. Maybe it's not the last announcement. Sorry. Little update. I don't know if you guys remember Jordan. Jordan is the pastor that we talked to a few weeks back. We are still planning on having Jordan January 7th to come down and preach. Jason let us know last week that he had another pastor couple that was interested, and he is meeting with them. He is supposed to be, last week when he texted me, I think it was maybe Friday, maybe Thursday, he said in a week and a half. So I'm guessing it's going to be the beginning of this week that he's going to meet with them. Once he meets with them, he's going to contact us and let me know if that's something we want to move forward with meeting them. We might meet another one. Who knows? We're going to see how that goes. But just so you guys know, We do have another interested party, interested pastor, so we'll see how that goes. Either way, Jordan is planning on being here January 7th to preach for us, so yeah, that's that. Now that's all the announcements I have. Now we're going to get into the message. I promise that's the last announcement that I have for this morning. So, Christmas season, right? It is Christmas season time, and typically here in the past, here at Capitol Vineyard, what we've done in the Christmas season is we've done a Christmas season series, right? We go through a series of messages relating to the Christmas season. We haven't done that in a while. I'm not starting that right now because we have this week, and then next week we're doing kind of a short message, and then Rick Reams will be here on Christmas Eve for us. So it's not a whole series to do, but it is actually out of a series that I did with the youth years ago. Okay, years ago I did a series with the youth that was called Grinched. Okay, and we took the movie The Grinch, and we kind of broke it down into different characters, into different parts of the movie, different themes that you kind of see throughout the movie, and we related it to our faith, to our relationship with God, to our relationship with each other in the church and in our faith and in our relationship with God. So it was a good series that I did with the youth. I loved the series. I reread all those messages this week, and realized that would be the Oops, I Did It Again series. I was reading it, and I was like, man, I feel like I got really strong into there's some stuff that we need to be doing differently with our lives. And so, yeah, it would be one of those messages. So I'm not going to preach those messages again, but I still do love the idea of going through the Grinch and looking at the Grinch movie. So that's what we're going to do this morning. We are going to look at the Grinch movie as a whole. I'll explain the whole movie to you guys in case you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, plug your ears, okay, because I'm going to ruin the whole thing right here. And we're going to go through the Grinch movie, and we're going to look at the storyline, because I do think that the storyline of the Grinch has some very key parts of it to the story that I think relate really well to religion and to the church and to us and our relationship with God. And so that's what we're going to do this morning. And we're going to start out, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's just going to be about the Grinch, and then it's going to get serious towards the end. So hang on. We'll get there, I promise. We're just going to start by breaking down the Grinch, the whole thing, okay? Have you guys all seen the Grinch movie?
Yeah.
That's great. I'm glad that there's nobody. If I miss details that you want me to say, just go ahead and shout them out, and I will say them, okay? Because it's a good movie. Now, there's a whole new generation of kids who think that the Grinch is this new movie, right? It's not. Okay, we're ignoring the new movie. I've only seen it once, haven't seen it enough to even use the storyline. We're going to ignore the new movie, and we're going to stick with the other two, okay? Honestly, mostly going to stick with the Jim Carrey movie because it has more to it that helps the message, okay? That's the only reason, is because it's longer, it has more details that I think are important. And so most of it will be the Jim Carrey Grinch, but they really do follow the same storyline, right? Basically, Cindy Lou Who, we meet this little girl who's confused about Christmas. She's confused about the whole concept of Christmas at this point. Why has Christmas become something that is so much about what can we get out of Christmas and not as much about what can we give through Christmas? Essentially is what Cindy's confused about, right? How did Christmas get blown up to this point? How have we gotten so lost in what Christmas is? And so in Cindy Lou Who's in her love of, I don't know, people. I don't really know what it is that drives her, but she decides she's going to go meet the Grinch, right? So she goes up to Mount Crumpet, and she meets the Grinch, and she invites him to the Jubilation. And the Jubilation, she wants him to be the holiday cheermeister, and so she invites him down, and he comes down, and he joins them for this big Christmas party, and it's a great time. They have a great time. All of my favorite scenes are from the Jubilation. Okay, one of my favorite scenes is when they're stuffing the Grinch full of things, right? Fudge and pudding and eggnog, and we actually played a game with the youth that was the exact same as those scenes, and it was wonderful, okay? That was back when I had a lot of youth that were involved and were willing to do pretty much anything I said was a game. And so we actually had them feeding each other fudge as fast as they could, and it was wonderful. I don't think all of them vomited. Some of them did, but it was fun. It was a really good time. She was there, so she could tell you, okay? Roxanne was involved. It wasn't just me, but it was fun. It was a good time. And so, like, those are, like, some of my favorites. So the Grinch has a great time, right? He has an awesome time at the Whobilation. He's, like, finally starting to, like, really understand some of the Who's and fit in a little bit. And then at the end of Whobilation, he gets the first gift of Christmas, right? And it's the mayor, and the mayor comes out with this joke, and he gives him a razor. Because at the beginning of the movie, right, the Grinch, like, shaves his face and butchers it, and everybody laughs, and that's when the Grinch leaves. And so the mayor gives him this razor, and it makes the Grinch angry, and admittedly, he overreacts, right? He steals everything, right, from the whole town. He steals all their Christmas, and he takes it up to the cliff, and he's going to push it off the cliff, and then his heart grows 3 sizes, and he gets happy again, and he brings it all back, and everybody's good, okay? I don't know why we're all good, but they're all good at this point. He's brought the Christmas back, and now I'll go to the old movie for Rebecca because she wanted me to go to the old movie. They let him carve the roast beast, right? That's what he gets to do. He gets such like an honored role in the feast at the end of the day, and he gets to carve the roast beast. And in the little movie, he's carving it and he hands it out to all the kids and whatever. It's great, okay? What? That's right. Max is there the whole time, right? So that is the Grinch, right? And at this point, you're probably like, I don't understand. What did we just do? We're just going to talk about the Grinch this morning? No, that's not the case. But I do think that the Grinch has a lot of similarities, I think, to the church. And I don't necessarily mean our church, but I mean the church in general. I think that there are a lot of things that we can draw from the Grinch that really do relate well to church in a way that I kind of didn't really realize until this week, or didn't maybe think about until this week. And so before I get into those, we're going to read a couple of verses. We're going to read a couple of verses that I really want us to hold on to as we're going through the rest of our Grinch connection, okay? First one is this. First one is a new, no, it's not a new verse. It's not new. None of it's new. This is not new to us. This is something that we have talked about hundreds of times, okay? This is a verse that we read all the time in this church, and I think it's still important, and it's 2 Corinthians 5:17, right? Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, this person is a new creation. Right, new creation, the old things passed away, behold, the new things have come. You have been born again, right? You have been made new in salvation, right? If you believe what Jesus did, if you believe in who Jesus was, you have been born again. You have been made new. You have a new heart. I think this is something that we talk about at church a lot, which I think is very important that we continue to talk about it at church a lot because I think it's very easily lost in the world. That when you are made new, you have been made new. Does that mean that God made you, that God changed your whole life and you are going to be perfect from this point on? Absolutely not. Right? We can't do that. We can't make it that far. Mike agrees. We can't get there, right? We can't be perfect. But we have been made new. And now we have entered the kingdom, right? Eternity starts that day. We've entered the kingdom, and we get to live our lives growing in that relationship with God. And I think this is, obviously, a central idea for us here at church. And I love it. I love that it is. I want it to continue to be, and I'm sorry if I preach it too many times, but I do think it's very important that we hear this and we continue to hear this because I don't think that this is always the understanding. Okay? I don't. Hold on to that. We'll keep going. The next one, the second thing we're going to read, is going to be Mark, I think my pages are all out of order. It's going to be Mark 12, 29 through 31. Okay? This is what it says. It says, Jesus answered, "The foremost is, hear Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." Love God, love people. That's what that is, right? And I understand, I get that Jesus came and Jesus died on the cross. And Jesus accomplished the old laws. He did. That they are fulfilled through Jesus, right? So Jesus is not telling us that this is a law. If you can't do this, You're not in relationship with God. That's not what he's saying here. But to me, this is something that Jesus decided was important enough for us to continue to remember, right? He taught this one as if it was important enough for us to remember. Love God, love people. Now, when I read that verse, that Mark verse, with the understanding of the 2 Corinthians verse, I get something that's maybe a little different, not really different, but it's newer to me, and not newer as in like this week, but like in my life in general, right? Since we've been down this road. I read that Mark, when I hear them, God, Jesus say that these are the two important commandments, I don't just hear, love God and love people, right? To me, this is Jesus telling us that we are called to just love everybody. Love people in the kingdom, love people out of the kingdom. Love people as much as we can. It does not him saying, love people who are good at this, or love people who are good enough, who have done enough to be, good. I'm not called to judge people. I'm not called to look at someone and say, I know how you talk, or I know what you think, or how you act, or what you look like. And so I'm not there. I can't love you. Right? That's not what this is. It's not our job as people here, as Christians, to question whether or not someone else has met Jesus. Right? Whether or not they know who Jesus is. Right? We are called to spread Jesus to everybody, to share Jesus with everybody. But when someone is in the kingdom, when they know who Jesus is, and they do something wrong, and then we question, do you really know God? Could you have really done that if you knew God well enough? Right? That's not what we're called to do. We are called to just love people, not question people, love them. Right? That's how I read this. Through this idea that when people are made new, they're made new. When you're born again, you are born again. You are a new creation. You're not a perfect creation. Although God sees us as perfect, right? We are his perfect creation. But you're not going to act perfect all the time. But you've been made new, right? You're standing there with God, and you're working on your stuff together. It's not my job to tell you how fast you got to work or how much you got to get done before, you die on the earth and you enter the rest of eternity, right? It's not our job. I told you we were going to get heavy, right? So now, I want to take that back to the Grinch. I want to take those two verses and this understanding, and I want to go back to the Grinch a little bit. Because, and this is not your cue, okay? I think that the church, the world, needs a little bit more Cindy Lou Who in our lives. Right? I do think that that's what we need. Because I think a lot of people's experience with church is very Grinchy. And I'm going to break that down a little bit more, because it's not just like they're curmudgeons. We don't have curmudgeons in this church. We have a couple. I'm not going to name any names, but we have a couple. Right? I'm just kidding. No, but it's not like not that I think that people's experience with church is they're angry and they're upset. But I'll break it down for you, okay? Let's take a look specifically at the Grinch. And this is where we're going to jump into the Jim Carrey movie, because we get more about the Grinch, okay? We are going to compare the whole movie to church. Ready? Whoville is the church. Ready? That's right. Whoville is full of the Christmas spirit. We're full of the Holy Spirit. It's different, but, right, you get it. They're full of Christmas. They love Christmas. They want everything to do with Christmas. That's Whoville. The Grinch started in Whoville, right? When he was born, they don't really get born. Whos aren't born, they just come in like baskets. It's kind of weird, but that's how they get there. They just come down in baskets. And the Grinch came down in his basket, and he started in Whoville. And he didn't have a great time in Whoville, but he was in Whoville. He was celebrating Christmas. He grew up there. He had these sweet little ladies that loved him, and they took care of him. And in fairness, he ate Santa's head at one point, and it's like that wasn't great, but still he was there, and he was having a good time. And when we pick him up as a kid, what is he trying to do? He meets Martha May, and what's he do? He makes Martha May a Christmas present. Right? He's so excited about Christmas that he's going to make Martha the best present she's ever gotten. And so he literally just tears up this house that these sweet old ladies that took him in gave him free reign of, apparently. And he just tears it up. And he makes her this wonderful angel that's like, it's a very sweet, pretty little thing that he makes for Martha May because he's so full of Christmas. And then what happens? Does anybody know? What happens after he gives Martha the present? He gets laughed at, right? Because he tried to shave his face that night. And so the young mayor guy, the young mayor as a kid, he makes fun of Grinch. He pushes Grinch out of Christmas. He's like, no, you can't be giving nice presents like that. That's not, look at your face. You look like a fool, right? And they laugh at him a bunch. They're real mean to him. And so the Grinch runs. He runs up to Mount Crumpet, and he just lives there the rest of his life alone. Very solitary life, just man and his dog up on a mountain. And he's angry. And I'll admit it, he was up to some mischief up there, right? Also some favorite scenes. Jury duty, hate mail, right? He is up to some mischief. But every once in a while, he comes back down to Whoville, and he dips his toe in, right? To see what the Whos are like, what they're doing down there. And every time he comes down, the Whos are mean to him. They see his face and they scream, right? They've got stories of how mean he is and how evil he is for everything that he's done up there. Every time he dips his toe in, he gets pushed back away. He's like, I don't want to be a part of Whoville. Until he meets Cindy Lou. Right? Cindy Lou Who, she goes up the mountain and she invites him to the Whobilation, and he's adamantly not going. He can't find anything to wear, he's not going. Okay? And then he does go. And he has a great time. Right? The people have a great time with him. It's not just him and Cindy like having a good time, right? It's everybody in Whoville. They're having a good time with him until the mayor comes back in and pushes them away. Right? The mayor gives him a joke, a present, it's a razor, to remind him of the time that he wasn't good enough. And I think a lot of people have this experience with church. I think people come into church, into a lot of churches, they come in and they're excited about being there and they're involved, they know who God is, they've met Jesus, they're ready to do this thing, and they get pushed away from church. And every time they come back, they dip their toe in, they're like, oh, it's still the same thing. And they leave. And they continue to leave. And I think a lot of that comes from church leadership. I'm just going to say that, right? I think there's a lot of leadership in churches that lead us to those points, right? Just think about the mayor for a second. If it wasn't for the mayor, would the Grinch have ever left? No, he would still be there, right? The people in Whoville, they saw the mayor, and he was very much I'm going to get bigger presents, I'm going to spend more money, I'm going to do all the things right so that I have the biggest and best Christmas. I have the most Christmas, right? That's what he did. That's how he lived his life. He got Martha the biggest ring he could get. He got her a nice new car, right? Everything was, what can I do more to have more Christmas? And Whoville followed right along. And all of a sudden, it's more presents. Who has more? Who has the most presents? Until Cindy Lou Who comes along. She's carrying her little pile of presents. Her little face sticks out. Why do we have so many presents, right? Like, that's her. And I think that we see this in church. I think I think the world sees church like this all the time. I think that we have a lot of church, a lot of religion that says, do more, be more, give more, read more, do more things, and that's how you're going to be saved. Do more things if you would like to have a relationship with God. You have to do all of the right stuff. You have to be friends with the right people. You have to read the right books, listen to the right music. And I think the world sees this all the time. And it's easy to get stuck in and not, I don't know if stuck's the right word, but it's easy for people to be a part of a church who just operates like this, right? We've all been there. I think that we get that at this church because I think a lot of us have been there. We've been a part of those churches. We've seen those churches work. We've seen those churches push people out because they're not doing enough. And I think the world sees that, and it becomes really hard for people to even start dipping their toes in the water. Because, well, if they're not good enough, like they've been at that church for how many years, and now all of a sudden, like they're not doing enough, well, I'm definitely not doing enough. And it becomes hard. And I think a lot of people have had the Grinch's experience. They know who God is. They've met God. They know who Jesus is. They've been made new. And they go into church, and church pushes them away. You're not doing enough. Whether there's somebody telling them specifically that they're not doing enough or not, or they just feel this weight, like I can't keep up with what's happening here. I just can't keep up. And so, they walk away from church. And every time they dip their toe in, things have never changed. Things haven't changed yet. I don't get it. And there's oftentimes that one person who's either leading the church or just somebody in the church, right? There are people in religion who say it loud enough that that's what everybody hears, right? The mayor. There's a lot of mayors in the world. And I think that we all need a little bit more Cindy Lou. Because what did she do? When Cindy was broken, or when she was confused, right? She went out and she found somebody who had been pushed away from Whoville, who had no Christmas. Pushed away from Whoville. You don't have to get up yet, Angela. Pushed away from Whoville, right? Who had no Christmas left. And she invited him down. She showed him some love. She loved him enough to go get him and bring him down. And he had a great time. He had an awesome time. He enjoyed the jubilation, all up until that one person who was afraid of him. Why did the mayor not like the Grinch? Because he was different, right? It's because the Grinch was different than him. He looked different. He sounded different. He acted different, right? The mayor didn't like him. And that was it, right? As soon as the mayor didn't like the Grinch again, the rest of the people just followed suit. What happened the second time that the Grinch came back? Why did he come back? You guys all know the answer. No. His heart grew 3 sizes. Right? And I don't think his heart grew 3 sizes because somebody went and saw him. Right? He's on top of a mountain with all of the presents he can have. He's ready to just push him over. No more Christmas. And nobody came up to him and found him. I mean, Cindy was on her way up to him to find him, but they weren't coming up to find him. The thing that stopped him was the Who's singing their song. He hears their song, and he's like, hold on, what's happening here? Right? Because all of a sudden it clicked for the Who's what really mattered at Christmas. It was no longer about what I can do, what I can get, how much I can have, and it all of a sudden became about the people around me, loving the people around me, being in that. And the Grinch saw that in a real dark time for the Who's. It's weird to think about that being a dark time, right? Your Christmas presents got taken, right? But that's the worst thing that could have happened for the Who's. They're at their lowest. And all of a sudden, this light shined through. And the Grinch stops and he's like, what's happening here? Right? And then he sees Cindy and his heart grows and he brings everything back. And we're all good. Because all of a sudden, it wasn't about doing more. It was about love. It was about loving others the way that God has loved us, right? And I think that the church, this is your turn, I think that the church needs more Cindy Lou in it. Because so often, I think so often, in our community, in the country, all over the place, people are pushed away from church because it's not about love. It's not about loving people. It's not about loving each other and loving God. It's about what can we do to make sure that we are doing enough on the right path to have that relationship. I think it gets lost that we've all been made new, right? That as brothers and sisters in the kingdom, we have all been made new. We don't have to be made new again. We've all been made new. We got stuff to work on, is what it is. The Grinch wasn't perfect. Caused a lot of mayhem. But he was there. He had that in him. We have it in us. We have the Spirit in us. Christ is in us. We are in him, right? And I think this time of year, the reason I want to talk about it now is because this time of year, I would guess, I haven't looked up numbers, but I'm going to guess, okay? And if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. This time of year, there are a lot of people in the country, in the world, maybe, that are going to dip their toes back into church. They're going to try church again. They're going to come in for Christmas service. They're going to come in a little bit before Christmas, so they're a part of the church a little bit. Whatever. They're going to dip their toes back into the church. And it is our time to make sure that we continue to be a Cindy Lou church. That we just love people. People that walk in, people that are dipping their toes into church again, that we love them. That we aren't pushing people away. I wish that we could get this message, this idea to all the churches. Because this is a time where people are going to come back. And they could have a great time in church. They could feel loved in church again. They could eat all the fudge and pudding they want. And they could be a part of church again. Or we can remind them of the time that they weren't good enough. We could give them their razor and say, remember when you shaved your face all funny? Right? And we push them back away. Now, I like to think that our church is that church. I'd like to be that church. I want to be that church. We talk about it all the time. I do want us to be a church where people can walk in the door and dip their toe back in church and they don't feel like we're looking at them going, what are you doing in this place? Why did you come in our doors this morning? But they walk in and they feel loved. They feel cared about. They feel like we're not worried about what happened yesterday. I'm worried about where you're headed tomorrow. Right? I want you to feel loved today so that tomorrow you know you're loved. I want to be that church. I want to spread that word. And so for us, when people are looking at getting into church again or even visiting church again, it doesn't have to be us here at this church. It doesn't have to be people walking in our doors. We see people all the time. Every day, we see people who are still in that same mindset of, I'm ready to try church again. I'm ready to dip my toe in church again. And we can influence those people. We can tell them that there is a place, that there are people in religion, in the faith, that don't think it's about how much work you can do today. That absolutely know that once you've met Jesus, you've been made new. And we want you to be made new with us. We want you to come live life in the grace that we have, but that it's there, it's available. That's what I want to be. That's what I want our church to continue to be. Why don't y'all stand up? We're going to jump back into worship together.